here at the Harwich Cultural Center, and I am doing the first artist spotlight, formal artist spotlight with one of the artists here, Jessie Marsolais of Marsolais Press and Lettering and Carving. Is that right?
Lettercarving.
Lettercarving.
Yeah.
Yes. So Jessie is one of the artists here in the space at the Cultural Center, and we thought it would be great to have a chance to talk with him about what he does here in his print shop. Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful, wonderful space, and you'll see some pictures of that shortly. But first, I just wanted to know, can you tell me how you got your start in this field?
Sure. Well, so my background is in creative writing, and one of the advantages to the school that I went to out in Boulder, Colorado, is they had a letterpress print shop for students to dabble in typography and design and distribution. One of the ethos of the school was that you just don't wait for someone to give you a publishing deal. You got to do it yourself, and that really inspired me, because I like working with my hands. I like learning a lot about the process, and I think that the process really is the exciting part, the doing of it. The fact that at the end of the process it results in a product is almost beside the point. But I really love engaging with people who have ideas for projects, whether it be a wedding invite or a business card, or on the printing side or on the carving side, I do signage and memorials and address numbers and that sort of thing. And I think in both cases, in printing and in carving, there have been more modern methods that have superseded the traditional crafts, and they're faster and cheaper. And I think for people who just need information, or they want something, like a run of menus for a restaurant, something where the craft of it is not really the most important thing, but the fact that the information needs to be distributed. I think those processes are much better equipped than letterpresses to handle those kinds of jobs. But I think for the wedding invite, or for the birthday invitation, something where a job that needs to be like conspicuously nicer, maybe a little bit more elegant, or just a better overall design, I think that's the people tend to come to me, and we collaborate for so that I can kind of help translate their idea into something that really represents their own sensibility. I mean, I'm happy to do work for myself, for my own amusement, because as I say, I love the process, but I think of my work as essentially a service craft. Doing it for people who actually want it. So.
Right. So you're really running a business.
Yes, in a manner of speaking, yes.
With your printing in rather classic old ways, with some wonderful old equipment. Original equipment.
I'm very, very fortunate to have acquired, on a fairly shoestring budget, a lot of really desirable typefaces. Everything I print is from a metal, handset metal type, and I've been fortunate to have been in the way of collections that have become available on the open market, and they're not making this equipment anymore, so you really have to kind of know either where it's available, or just be in some sort of cosmic grapevine where people refer others to people like me who are looking for these sorts of things all the time. I've had people come in, even since I've been here. A gentleman came in, his father was a printer, and he had some measuring equipment and just some old books that were on his shelf he didn't know what to do with, but he saw an article that someone had written about me and said, I thought another printer should have it. I think my father would really appreciate that. So in a way, I'm kind of bringing into my shop equipment that was used when the craft, or when the process was the industrially viable method of printing. I mean, it wasn't.
So when would you date that to?
I would say up to 1970. The process of letterpress was really innovated by Johannes Gutenberg in the 15th century. I mean, this is a long, stable tradition that has a deep history. And there are a lot of people, especially in New England, who are doing it. Boston was a very large printing town and publishing town for a long time. And I think the fact that I'm here in New England puts me in the way of a lot of equipment, because it's just, there was so much of it. But around about 1970, the newer methods became perfected, and I think the captains of industry had no sentimentality about retaining all this equipment.
Yes,
they
moving right along.
Yeah, they're like, well, this stuff is theoretically dangerous if you don't know how to use it. It's heavy, it can be dirty, and they're not making new parts to replace, so if something breaks. But fortunately, I mean, this press was built in 1920, and it still runs like a charm. So if you know how to use it, if you know how to maintain and care for the equipment, then it will essentially last for at least my working lifetime, and hopefully whoever comes into the shop that I may teach.
And I'm sure you you had to have a love of the craft in order to do it.
Yeah, I think
Right.
there's a certain level of stubbornness that that becomes a virtue in this process, because there really is no substitute for just doing the work, and you have to make a lot of mistakes.
So true. Yeah.
And you have to, I like the fact that there's an incremental aspect to it. You pull a proof, you set your type, you have this idea, you go to the case, you set your type, you pull a proof, and then you know in the instant whether the time that you just spent was worthwhile and gives you something you can work with or push off from, or if it was just a huge waste of time. So I think one of the skills that I've developed over time is the ability to design in my head as I'm driving. Watch out. The idea that you can think and type, so that will kind of save you some time when I get to the shop. I don't have to run off in some direction that maybe won't bear fruit. I already know which typeface I want to use, or at least the two that I want to balance against, so that I can show a client what it might look like in one typeface versus another.
I see.
And it's an economy, but it's still there's no getting around to the fact that it's a slow process, because everything is done by hand.
Right, right. So do you ever have the opportunity to teach others this craft with this amazing equipment that you've been able to gather?
I have taught. I do a lot of sort of school visits. I've gone to various universities and done demonstrations. And I think now that I'm here in the old wood shop, I'm really eager to open it up to people who might want to learn a little bit about letterpress, letter carving, or calligraphy. I kind of cover a fairly wide general area. It's all related. I mean, printing types early on in the 15th century were inspired by manuscript calligraphy, and so there's essentially this unbroken thread of lettering and calligraphic arts that flow through the alphabet all the way back to the Roman era. And the fact that I do lettering in stone and wood helps kind of bring it all together. I feel like I'm traveling at any given point. I'm on some coordinate on the spectrum of this great ancient tradition of letter arts and printing.
Right, and to be able to share it would be really great, and that's one of the things about being here at the Cultural Center, it seems to me, too. It's really a centrally located place.
Yeah.
And people can find you, and it would be wonderful if you were able to share it with the community.
And I'm here every day, and I've been developing workshop formats. It's just hard to anticipate, what people want to learn about. I could possibly do like a general open house, and people can just do a little bit of everything, or I could just offer like a personal letterhead workshop, so people know what it's like to set type and pull an impression. And there are any number of different ways that it could go, but I think I would be most excited to work off of people's natural enthusiasm, because I think for the people who aren't necessarily interested in the minutia of typography or the time it takes to learn how to carve a letter, it can seem very dull. So I'm sensitive to that. So I find that there have been enough people who come through here to say, they hang back after they've come through with a group, and they say, oh, this is actually kind of cool. Like, either can you do something for us? We want an address number, or we need a memorial or something. Like they come back to sort of patronize the service, and then they also say, I'd really like to know how to do it myself. So I'm hoping to kind of harness some of that energy.
And build some kind of a group of people that might be interested in working further. Well, I remember at the open house, which is where I first met you, you demonstrated on a little press.
That's right.
Which was really a cool little thing, and there was a child here, as I recall, and it was very interesting for both the adults and that child to see how you did it. It seemed very accessible to me, and it's part of what interested me in talking with you further about it.
And that child's response is identical to the response that I had when I first encountered letterpress as an undergrad. I mean, there's this sort of childlike fascination with how things are made, because I think a lot of us are separated from the things we work on behind a screen. So we use computers every day. We use phones that are like phenomenally sophisticated, but we don't necessarily know how they work.
We don't know what goes into it.
We don't know who's looking at the other thing.
So it's true. It's like slowing everything down a bit.
This really, and the fact that it's not. I mean, people say this, it's such a foreign process, but really this was the trial technology that got us to the computer.
I know.
So this plays a part in the history of whatever modern technology you care to focus on.
It certainly does. Foreign. That's interesting. No, because it does seem like it would be the foundation. It's foundational, really, to everything that we see now.
And the typefaces that we use in digital formats and pixelated forms are the way they are because they originally, or many of them were in hot metal. sell. They were pieces of type that
Yes.
printers like me handled and set and arranged in various designs. And a lot of those faces have been adapted to digital typography. And of course,
I see.
once a new platform becomes tested and market viable on an industrial scale, new forms are designed unique to that, like they say, born digital. There's
Sure.
so many
Yeah.
typefaces
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
quote unquote born digital
Oh, really?
that don't have any correlation to
yeah.
metal typography, but
No
there's still
connection.
enough out there
I see.
that there is a link back, even if people don't necessarily know what it is.
Right, right. So I know you work in wood as well, and
Yep.
so you have a project going on right now in wood?
I do, yeah. I'm
What
really
is that?
excited about this. It's a panel for the Yale Law School. It's a faculty lounge commemorative panel. They've endowed it on behalf of an illustrious former student and former dean as well. And so they came to me. I had done a project for them a couple years ago for the dining hall of the Yale Law School, and doing work in stone and wood. There's a similarity in that the result is the same, but the way that you carve letters in stone versus the way you carve them in wood are very different.
Of course, yes.
In stone,
Totally
I can
different
carve
implements.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah. In stone, I can use a single chisel to carve whatever shape you can throw at me. Whereas in wood, because you're dealing with a grain, which has a mind of its own, you need different tools for every different line, whether it's a curve or depending on the radius of the curve. So if you'll see, I have a wide array of tools for carving for letters in wood.
And how long would it take you to make a sign such as that? What is the time frame for a project like that?
Yeah, I mean, the projects like that, the scale of it where I'm dealing with like over 150 letters of varying sizes, you have to kind of measure in weeks and months. I mean, I have a certain amount that I can carve on a good day, and then there are others where I don't quite make my quota, but it's again, it's a slow process. It's all done by hand, and the cost of, no one cares if you make a mistake quickly. You know, it's the fastest way to ruin something is to be careless. And so I find that you know, stepping back and slowing down a little bit and really engaging with the material and obviously trying to work towards a deadline. I mean, obviously people want to have in hand the things they commission, but I feel like sometimes I have to kind of educate clients about the scale of the project and the time frames involved, because I think most people are used to just pressing a button and then having it be done somehow.
We certainly are.
Mysteriously on some other end.
Right,
whereas
right.
I'm like, well, no, this is what goes into it. I have to design the letter forms. I have to arrange the lines and
Well, clearly it's
carve
still
each
very
letter.
valued.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful that you're finding people who do value this work,
I'm
because
very,
it's
very
so
fortunate.
special.
Yeah, I've been blessed with the kind of clients that have found me and the people that I've been put in contact with.
And it's the kind of work for a very deliberate and I would say perhaps perfectionistic person. I don't know you, but it seems that it would require that kind of patience and deliberation, really, to be able to do it.
It certainly does. It can be a certain. It can reach levels of mania that most people probably wouldn't appreciate. And I hear often, especially from my wife, she'll say, you know, you're the only person who knows that. And it's not a mistake like it's a typo or you know, something is like critically wrong. It's just maybe stylistically, or like I just didn't clean something as carefully as I would have liked, but it passes the test otherwise. And she'll say, you know, you're the only person in the world who knows that there's a problem. And I say, yes, that's one person too many. So yes, it certainly requires a perfectionism, but it also, the realization that you're trying to achieve a human perfection and not machine perfection is part of it, because you'll just drive yourself crazy. I mean, at a certain point you have to kind of walk away and let it exist and let the people who commission it enjoy it. Because nobody wants to be pointed out that, like, hey, look at this is a mistake. It's like, well, is it really?
Yeah, and one of the things that I really loved about coming in here is that it's almost like stepping back in time. Yeah. And so I think everyone needs to slow down a little bit, and it sounds like you need to take your time with your process. Well, I love the fact that, you know, the floors here, the aroma of the old hardwood floors. It smells so good too.
You think they've been. It's this sort of, you know, many generations of student footwork go into making the floors look the way they do and smell the way they do.
That's really a great way of looking at it.
And the fact that this was before. I mean, I know it's done. It's served time as an art studio, as a music room, but most recently it was the wood shop, which is what my wife, when my wife went to school here, it was a wood shop. And so I feel like there's a certain harmony in the level of engineering, the presses that I have and the kind of work that I'm doing. I feel like in a way I'm carrying it forward in a way that the walls recognize, even if
there's a resonance. There's a resonance
yeah.
of the past
Yeah.
here.
So
It's wonderful that you're here and that you are
I'm delighted to be here.
wanting to share your work too. And I think it would be great for you to be able to open up and work with other people and have them come here and perhaps, you know, build their understanding of this art form and craft, because it really is extraordinary and wonderful, and you are very passionate about what you do.
Indeed. Well,
So,
the master printer that I worked under, John Christensen at Firefly Press in Boston, said it's like the Latin Mass. It's not important that it's done everywhere, but it should be done somewhere. And I very much feel called to the work.
I see, yeah.
And I think that even in the context of just a local community, there are applications for the work that I do that could satisfy a need that will otherwise go unaddressed,
and that people would never know about.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. And that's the thing too. No one's walking around saying, you know, today's the day I'm going to commission a hand-carved gravestone. But the fact that that is available to people who appreciate that sort of thing, I think, is very important.
Well, it's the wonderful thing about artists, I think, in general, is that they bring their own soul and their own passion to whatever they do, and they are able to share it with others who are then able to appreciate it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks so much for coming down. It's been a pleasure.
I really appreciate it. Thanks.
You're welcome.